In the previous lesson, we looked at the print output. So we did a print like the hello world, and we can print strings. Now let's talk about variables that are used within Python as well. So you have different types of variables that you could use. For example, I can do x equal to 10. 10 here is an integer. And then we can do y is equal to 3.14. This one is what we call a float. You've seen strings a while ago, so we can do name is equal to John. So this is a string. For those not familiar, by the way, anything that starts with a hashtag here, this is a single line comment. So these will not be executed. The other type that we have is what we call a Boolean. So for example, if I say check, and I could say, let's say, is x greater than 5. You see up here we have x is equal to 10, then check x is equal to 5. Now, if I now do a print and I say x is, I can do this. I can do the string, put a comma, and then the variable, such as x over there. Let's do print y is, and then we'll do y. We'll do another print z is, and we can do z, and let's do print check. Oops, is, and we can put in check. Now let's run this, and I'm getting an error because there is no z. I forgot about that, so let's take that out and do this, and notice that x is x, which is 10, y is equal to 3.14, and notice that check is true because this is now being evaluated. I forgot the name. That's the instead of z, I should have put name. The name is, and we'll do name. And let's run this again. We see name is John. Notice in Python, you don't explicitly need to tell the variable what type it is. It automatically knows what it is. Let's add a label here. I call this Boolean. Yeah. Now, your variable names must always start with a letter. Okay? For example, you can have a variable called name, as you put in here, John. You can also have a variable that starts with an underscore and say last name equals Wick. But so if I run this, see, we don't get any error. But you cannot have variables that start with a number. You cannot say to name equals check Chuck. Let's do Chuck. And you see I'll get a syntax error because your variable cannot start with a number. But you can use the underscore, start with an underscore. In Python, starting a variable with underscore does have its meaning, but it's more of a style, and you'll see that later on in the course. But you can also use the underscore, let's say first name, can also be done this way. So let's fix name here, change that to even two underscores, and that works out fine. Now, speaking of variables, there is a convention where if you do all capital, this is what we call a constant. Now, a constant means the content of the variable should not change. Okay, I say should because in Python, even if you declare something as a constant by putting in all capital letters, it can still be changed. But the convention is if any variable starts with a capital letter, such as if I put in name such as this and I put James, that means this is a constant value containing James. But Python doesn't actually stop you from modifying it. But we want to keep the convention that any variable that's in all capital letters are meant to be constants. That means you should not change it. Just like the value of pi, which is 3.14, pi should not be anything than 3.14, or if you want a more accurate one, a longer decimal. Now, how do we print these? So I showed you as an example here. Let me just delete these to make it clear for us. So up here, we notice that if we print the variable with a comma, this will always insert a space. Notice how X is, but my code does not have a space. But after it prints the variable, there is a space that's inserted there automatically. So just be mindful of that. There is another way of printing variables. If I still have my variables up there, so let's keep that over there. Now, if I want to print that, I can actually do print, and I could say X is, but instead of putting a comma, I can put a curly bracket and put the actual variable inside. Now, if I do this, I have to convert this to what we call a formatted string. To make it into a formatted string, I have to put an F in front, like this. And notice in the syntax highlighting, the color of these curly brackets with the X has changed. It's no longer purple. So if I run this, notice that it says X is 10. If I forget to put the F, which indicates that it's a formatted string, notice how the syntax coloring remains consistent. It'll display this. Okay, so don't forget the F in front of the double quote. Now, when you do this, if I remove the space here now, and I print that, then I get X is 10 without the space. With a comma similar to this, that space will always be there. You won't be able to remove it. Okay, so if you want to control how your text looks like, so rather than is, if I wanted X colon and I wanted to output like that, then I could do this function. Because if I print and I say X is, or rather than X or X colon, and then put comma X, notice that I didn't put a space here, but if I run that, I will always get that space. Okay? So this is one way to add in your variables. So it's the same way it works with name as well. So I could say F again, and I'll say name is, or let's just do name colon. I'll put a space, and I'll put the variable in curly brackets, put name, close that, and if I run this, then I get name John. So you can insert your variables inside your strings using the curly brackets. You can also do variables storing these values. For example, I could say message is equal to F, and I could put the quote, and I can say my name is, and put name as my variable. If I run this, nothing happens. But if I can now say print message, that prints that, because it takes the value of message is now the F string, which contains my name is and then the variable. So you can do it this way as well. So let's take this a little bit further. So what if it has to be a little bit more complicated? Let's extend this, and let's say first name is equal to John. Our last name is equal to Wick. And let's say our age is equal to 35. And we'll keep it as simple as that. Now we can do a print in a message and say let's do this a formatted string. My name is, we can say first name, then we can do last name, and I am, then we can do age, years old. You see how we can have one string, and then we can insert the variables inside as properly formatted. And if I run this, those variables inside gets filled in automatically within the print function. We'll stop here, and in the next lesson, we'll look at input operations where we can actually add values into variables depending on what the user has entered.